Good evening, you're watching News Mongolian World. I'm your host, Nutcracker Ballet. And for our top stories, there are new opportunities for Mongolia to strengthen private sector productivity and diversify economy. Postage stamps with Chinggis Khan thematics are popular among stamp collectors. The Nutcracker Ballet to be staged on December 25th through 27th. And for the news, stay tuned. Mongolia has an opportunity to strengthen its business environment to create a more level playing field for companies, particularly small and medium enterprises, and facilitate a more productive private sector beyond the mining sector, says the latest World Bank report released this week.
For 2 decades, economic growth performance has been impressive in Mongolia, with significant success in poverty reduction and human well-being. However, Mongolia has become highly dependent on commodities exports, especially coal and copper, with weak linkages between mining and the rest of the economy, says the report. Unemployment is high and the labor force participation is falling, notably for women. Establishing a more conducive and predictable business environment would benefit SMEs, which are more vulnerable to restrictive regulations and make up 97% of the active firms in the country, according to the Mongolian Business Environment and Competitiveness Assessment Report. They contribute around 5.5% of GDP and 2.4% to exports. Mongolian SMEs could be positioned as active agents of the country's needed economic diversification and transformation, integrated in clusters and supply chains for goods and services, providing jobs and fostering inclusive growth, says the report. The report recommends focusing on increasing competition amongst firms to encourage investment and foster innovation. It also highlights the importance of reducing barriers to international trade to facilitate competitiveness of domestic manufacturing and boost non-mining productive sectors. Other recommendations include digitalizing and simplifying administrative systems to improve government services that create a conducive business environment.
On the occasion of the holidays, the Nutcracker Classic Ballet will be performed at the Mongolian State Academic Theatre of Opera and Ballet on 25th through 27th of December. Mongolian State Honored Actor and Mongolian Cultural Envoy Altan Khoyik will be the stage director.
The Nutcracker is an 1892 two-act ballet originally choreographed by Marius Petipa and Lev Ivanov with a score by Pyotr Ilyich Tchaikovsky. The complete Nutcracker ballet has enjoyed enormous popularity since the late 1960s and is now performed by countless ballet companies primarily during the Christmas season.
It is the third time I portrayed the Nutcracker. The most memorable moment is when the Nutcracker turns into Prince. It's such an honor to stage this ballet. The ballet itself requires a lot of stage decoration settings and most importantly dancing skills from dancers, as it contains a lot of complex and difficult choreography. The ballet itself provides opportunities for child actors as well. This year features 200 young ballet dancers. Performing in the Nutcracker is like a dream come true for these children.
The Mongolian State Honored Actor and the Mongolian Cultural Envoy Altoyek also plays the role of Uncle Drosselmeyer.
Stamp collecting is a fun and an addictive hobby that explores history, geography, art and politics. It can be a therapeutic activity for an opportunity to meet like-minded people and join clubs and societies when it comes to Mongolia. Stamps with Chinggis Khan thematic are quite popular among the stamp collectors.
Currently, there are only 8 pieces of the first stamp with the portrait of Chinggis Khan reserved in Mongolia in private collections of collectors. The rest are already purchased by foreign collectors. Experts say that the initial value of the stamps has grown several times.
On the occasion of the 860th anniversary of the birth of the Chinggis Khan, the new thematic stamp was issued. The particularity of this stamp is that it never loses its values and you can send the letter using the old stamps. These stamps with the Chinggis Khan thematic are considered valuable internationally. There are a lot of Mongolian scholars and historians who collect these stamps. I heard the stamp issued recently on the occasion of the 860th anniversary of the Chinggis Khan birth are issued only in few pieces.
The newly issued set of stamps contains 6 pieces with the Chinggis Khan portrait, the museum named after him, the sculpture at the central square, and more.
It is an important opportunity to promote Mongolian culture and tradition through the newly issued post stamp.
There are about 4,050 types of postage stamps on over 1,000 topics available for public display at the Museum of Postage Stamps of the Mongol Post Company. Experts say that newly issued stamp provides an opportunity to promote Mongolian culture and history to the world.
Thank you for staying with us. Now let's take a look at the currency exchange rates provided by Mongol Bank. Here's the international news from our partner agencies. The US has announced a new $1.8 billion military aid package, including for the first time Patriot surface-to-air missiles for Ukraine. The announcement was made shortly before Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky arrived in the United States on Wednesday.
The military aid package also includes precision-guided bombs for fighter jets, U.S. officials said. It represents an expansion in the kinds of advanced weaponry intended to bolster Ukraine's air defenses against what has been an increasing barrage of Russian missiles. Russia's foreign ministry has said the delivery of the advanced surface-to-air missile system would be considered a provocative step and that the system and any cruise accompanying it would be a legitimate target for Moscow's military. The leaders of USA and Ukraine spoke at a press conference earlier this week. President Joe Biden said he was honored to welcome Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky to the White House, noting it was Zelensky's first trip outside Ukraine since Russia invaded some 300 days ago. Biden said Zelensky's trip to Washington came as Russian President Vladimir Putin is escalating his brutal attacks, shelling critical Ukrainian infrastructure. Biden promised that the United States and Ukraine would stand together through 2023.
India has begun randomly testing international passengers arriving at its airports for COVID-19, the country's health minister said Thursday, citing an increase in cases in neighboring China. Indian Health Minister Mansukh Mandaviya announced that new rule in Parliament, where he also urged state governments to increase surveillance for any new coronavirus variants and send samples of all positive cases to genome sequencing laboratories.
Statement by Minister.
Mandaviya also asked the public to wear masks and maintain social distancing, even though there are no official mandates for either. India relaxed its mask-wearing rules earlier this year after coronavirus cases began dropping sharply. It has reported the most COVID-19 cases in the world since the pandemic began, but confirmed infections have fallen sharply in the past few months. According to Health Ministry data, India currently has about 3,400 active coronavirus cases. Cases have surged in neighboring China since it relaxed its harsh restrictions earlier this month following rare public protests. Mandaviya said the Indian government has no plans yet to halt flights from countries where new cases have been reported. The increase in cases in China has also prompted Indian health experts to issue advisories for the public to wear face masks and receive vaccine booster doses. On Thursday, India's top doctors' body, the Indian Medical Association, also appealed to people to wear masks in all public places and get vaccine boosters. It urged people to avoid public gatherings such as weddings, political and social meetings, and international travel. As of now, the situation is not alarming and therefore there is no need to panic. Prevention is better than cure, it said in a statement. India, a country of nearly 1.4 billion people, has administered more than 2.2 billion COVID-19 vaccine doses, but only 27% of the population has received a third booster dose.
Hospitals in Beijing are rapidly trying to expand the capacity of their fever clinics to cope with the surge in patients due to the COVID-19 infections, Chinese state CCTV reported.
The sudden spike in new infections in the past 2 weeks has placed enormous strain on medical resources and hospitals, including the capital's Chaoyang Hospital.
We usually have 100 patients a day in the internal medicine department, but now we have almost 400 patients every day. These patients are elderly with background diseases, combined with fever and respiratory tract infection. They are all in serious conditions.
The number of beds in the emergency room has been increased to 70 from an original 16. The hospital has also converted some wards to receive patients in critical conditions and rearranged resources to treat the COVID-19 patients and ease the pressure of the emergency department, CCTV said. Facing the surge of fewer patients, Beijing has increased the number of fever clinics from 94 in early December to the present 1,263, including 303 in hospitals of secondary and higher level and 960 in community health institutions to maximize access to care for patients, according to CCTV. Authorities have encouraged hospitals to convert public facilities into makeshift fever clinics in response to rising demand. The head of the World Health Organization said Wednesday the agency is very concerned about rising reports of severe coronavirus disease across China after the country largely abandoned its zero-COVID policy, warning that its lagging vaccination rate could result in large numbers of vulnerable people getting infected. Some scientists have warned that the unchecked spread of COVID-19 in China could spur the emergence of new variants, which might unravel progress made globally to contain the pandemic. State broadcaster CCTV said in the central city of Wuhan, where the coronavirus was first discovered, more than 3 million tablets of ibuprofen were being delivered to medical institutions and pharmacies every day. In Jinan, in eastern Shandong province, 1.1 million tablets of ibuprofen were delivered to the grassroots clinics in 2 days, said CCTV. In Nanjing, in southeast Jiangsu province, more than 2 million tablets of anti-fever drugs were being distributed to the city residents by pharmacies. In order to meet the maximum demands of people in the city, each person can buy up to 6 tablets of anti-fever drugs. Multiple cities in southern China have converted COVID-19 testing booths into makeshift fever clinics in compliance with the country's optimization of COVID-19 restriction measures. Medics at newly transformed service stations can offer medical care such as diagnosis and medical treatment, consultation and guidance, prescription of traditional Chinese medicine, among many other medical services, said CCTV. China is seeing a surge of cases after the government last week eased some of the world's strictest COVID-19 containment measures.
为了方便群众就近看病就医。
Now let's take a look at our regular feature on sports. Santa Claus is known for shimmying down chimneys, but for one day a year, dozens of Santas try to avoid tumbling down a mountain. The 18th annual Santa event took place at Sunday River Ski Resort in western Maine on Sunday. The event is highlighted by Santa skiing and snowboarding down the slopes to raise money for the Sunday River Community Fund, which benefits groups in the area. One of the Santas was Yelena Walsh of Boston, a 50-year-old financial analyst who was once a professional skier in Russia. Walsh said the event is the highlight of her holiday season. The skiing Santas participate in full Kringle garb, including, of course, a white beard and a red hat. The Santas must all donate a minimum of $15. Online registration to participate filled up in 10 minutes, said Darcy Lambert, a spokeswoman for Sunday River. The event has grown in popularity over the years, Lambert said, with 160 Santas raising $2,500 Sunday. The event took place in the tiny western Maine town of Newry, about 80 miles northwest of Portland. The cost of the delayed 2020 Tokyo Olympics is 20% higher than organizers said when they announced official figures more than a year ago. This is the conclusion of a report by the Board of Audit of Japan released this week. The report said there was a lack of full disclosure and transparency on the part of the government and the organizing committee. The audit put the cost in Japanese yen at 1.7 trillion. Organizers last year put that figure at 1.42 trillion yen. Because of the fluctuating exchange rates between the dollar and the yen over the last year, the exact dollar price is difficult to pinpoint. The audit report said the government, if its significant involvement is expected, should make a timely disclosure of total spending or an estimation. It should set up a system that allows full disclosure to contribute to the people's understanding about the hosting and execution of the event. Last year, organizers used a rate of 109 yen to the dollar to the list of the official costs, meaning 1.42 trillion yen was equal to 13 billion US dollars. At that rate, the new price is now 15.5 billion US dollars. However, the current exchange rate is now 130 yen to the dollar. At this rate, the official cost is 13 billion US dollars. In fairness, organizers do not disclose the exchange rate they use for payments denominated in dollars. What is clear is that the costs in yen are 20% higher than the organizers said. The audit report came the same week that Sapporo city officials and the Japanese Olympic Committee said that they are pausing their bid for the 2030 Winter Olympics. Here's the weather forecast of all major cities. Well, that's all for this week. Thank you for staying with us. We'll see you next week with more news and updates. Have a nice evening. Goodbye.